For over 30 years, he was the Reaper of Souls, the man who couldn't die, the one who buried legends and walked through fire without ever bleeding fear. But behind the Undertaker's mask was a man breaking apart, piece by piece. And at 61 years old, the truth he hid from the world for decades is finally out. This isn't a wrestling story. This is a story about what it costs to be a legend. Mark Calaway grew up in Houston, Texas, tall, quiet, and destined for something bigger than his small-town beginnings. He wasn't supposed to become an icon. He was supposed to be a basketball player, a normal kid with a normal life. But wrestling found him, and in 1990, something else found him too, a character called The Undertaker. A funeral director, a dead man walking, a myth brought to life. And the moment he stepped through that entrance music, the boy from Houston disappeared. What replaced him would terrify, inspire, and captivate millions for the next 3 decades. Here's what the fans never saw. Every bump, every fall, every just one more match. It was a man quietly destroying his own body to keep a legend alive. Broken bones, torn muscles, concussions he wrestled through without telling anyone. Behind the curtain, whispers grew. How much longer can he keep doing this? He wasn't in his 20s anymore. Then he wasn't in his 30s. Then his 40s came and went, and somehow, the Reaper kept rising. But the human being underneath the character was aging in ways the character never could. And one day, his body would stop pretending. But that was just the beginning. The turning point didn't come in a wrestling ring. It came in a hospital bed. Multiple surgeries, a fused back, a rebuilt hip, procedures that would have ended most men's careers a decade earlier. He kept going anyway. Because for The Undertaker, stopping wasn't just retiring from a job. It was killing a part of himself he'd spent 30 years building. And then, cameras that were never meant to see this side of him did. A documentary crew followed him during what would become his final years in the ring. And for the first time, the world saw something nobody expected. The Undertaker, in pain, uncertain, human. To understand what breaking this myth truly meant, you have to understand what he built. WrestleMania, 21 straight wins. A streak so untouchable, fans didn't just watch it, they believed in it, the way people believe in things bigger than sports. Every year, a new opponent stepped into the graveyard, and every year, they walked out defeated. He wasn't just a wrestler. He was an event, a ritual, a myth that renewed itself every spring. For 30 years, he adapted, reinventing his character again and again, outlasting eras, outlasting trends, outlasting almost everyone he started with. But legends don't get to stay legends forever. Somewhere behind the curtain, the countdown had already begun. What came next was the most human thing The Undertaker ever did. In interviews after his retirement, Mark Calaway opened up about something fans rarely considered, the identity crisis of stepping away from a character he'd lived inside for 3 decades. He admitted the fear, not fear of pain, not fear of losing a match, but the fear of not knowing who he was without the character. Who is Mark Calaway when The Undertaker is gone? He spoke about long nights of doubt, about watching his body fail him in ways his mind refused to accept, about the toll it took not just physically, but on his marriage, his family, his sense of self. At his WWE Hall of Fame induction in 2022, the mask fully came off, literally and emotionally. Standing before the crowd, without face paint, without the character, he broke down in tears. For the first time in public, the world didn't see The Undertaker. They saw a man. Grateful, exhausted, and finally honest. Today, at 61, Mark Calaway isn't chasing streaks anymore. He's a husband, a father, a man rebuilding an identity after living inside a legend for over half his life. He's spoken openly, through podcasts, documentaries, and interviews, about chronic pain that never fully leaves, about surgeries that reshaped his spine and hips, about the emotional weight of walking away from the only identity he'd known since he was 25 years old. This story matters now because it strips away the myth we all grew up believing. The Undertaker never really couldn't die. He was a man, quietly paying a price behind every entrance, every match, every one more year, so that millions of fans could believe, just for a moment, in something undefeatable. He gave the world a legend that never seemed to age, never seemed to break, never seemed to feel pain. But legends are built on human backs. And Mark Calaway's back, literally and figuratively, carried more weight than any fan ever knew. At 61, the truth isn't some scandal, some secret, some shocking twist. The truth is simpler, and somehow, more heartbreaking than that. The truth is, he was never actually the Undertaker. He was just a man who loved something so much. He was willing to sacrifice his body, his identity, and years of his life to make us believe in the impossible. And maybe that is the most human story of all.